Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. We are obviously back for another trucking vlog, since that is all I ever do now, of course. So I just got back from my home time yesterday, and I did not record yesterday, obviously, but I have to tell you guys about yesterday, because it was something, that is for sure. I will say, and I know I've said this before, that like I have a tough time with days like yesterday and recording them, because like essentially a lot of things went wrong yesterday. To give you a brief synopsis of what's going on. A lot of things went wrong yesterday, and when things started to go wrong, I was like, man, maybe I should record this, you know, just because like this is, you know, I've said I'm going to take you guys through all the ups and downs, you know, but at the same time, like, I didn't really feel like recording yesterday, and I don't want to record when I don't feel like recording, you know, like I don't ever want to force myself to record. I want to record when I'm like, hey, I want to record today, you know? So thankfully today is one of those days, and I felt like talking to you guys, so that's why we're here now. But I will say, since I didn't record yesterday and it ended up being so much worse than it originally started at, when I originally had that thought of like, oh, do I want to record today or not? I am definitely very thankful that I didn't record yesterday, because the thing with bad days like yesterday is that while yes, if I record it, it's like, okay, I get footage out of the bad day, and that makes the bad day not so bad, because at least like I get some sort of benefit from it. But the other thing that I worry about is that if I'm having a bad day and I try to record it and then there's an issue with the recording or something, well, then it makes my bad day even worse. So yesterday was one of those days where I'm glad that that was not a risk that was on the table, because man, I got so frustrated yesterday. And this is one of those things where, you know, again, as I kind of go through and tell the story, maybe it's not going to sound as bad as it actually was, especially because my memory's just like I'm not good with timelines. So I may say, oh yeah, I was here for this amount of time or whatever, and it might have actually been way longer or something. But either way, hopefully it will come across just how miserable yesterday was. And again, I also want to note, I at no point yesterday was like in danger or anything like that, or in any physical pain or anything. And so that is good news. Like, I am very, very thankful for that. I am simply complaining about these things because they were very frustrating. I had a very emotionally strenuous day yesterday. But thankfully, as far as physicality goes, everything was fine. I was safe, all that kind of stuff. So all those disclaimers aside, let's go ahead and get into what happened yesterday. So I got back from my home time yesterday morning at about, I think 10 a.m. is about when I got to my truck. So I sent a message to my driver manager. I said, hey, I'm back at my truck. I'm ready to go on duty once you've got a load for me. Like, I'm ready to go. So So then I get blown up with messages. I mean, I all of a sudden get like 18 messages. And normally when you get like a pre-plan or something, so like the message that tells you what your load could be as long as you approve of it and think you can make it and all that kind of stuff. Typically when you get a pre-plan, it's like the message with the pre-plan, maybe like an additional message, like if the pre-plan doesn't fit in one message, and then something that says like all of the pickup and delivery times are based on their local time. So there's always those messages. There's always at least 2, sometimes 3. Some even have 4 occasionally, like especially if sometimes they'll send the pre-plan and dispatch you on it before you even say like, hey, I can do this, you know. But anyways, I got 18 messages, like, or something along those lines, and I was like, what the heck is going on? So Some of them were just random stuff. Like, we occasionally will get random, like, safety messages of just like, hey, make sure you've got your chains just in case you hit snow or whatever. Or, hey, remember to use 3 points of contact getting in the truck, whatever. But in yesterday's case, in yesterday's case, some of those were those messages, but I also got 4 pre-plans all at once. And that is not something that happens very often, and that also immediately tells me that I'm going to have a very busy day. So sure enough, I looked through the pre-plans, and it was the first load. I get back from my home time, I'm in the Brooks yard. So first pre-plan was a load that was a repower in Brooks. So I just basically drive around the yard, hook up to the trailer, and then, go on my merry way. It went from Brooks to Tangent. So Albany, essentially. Like 45, maybe 30 minutes south of Brooks, depending on traffic. And then the second pre-plan was also a load that was supposed to repower in Brooks and then take it to that same place in Tangent. So I was essentially going to hook up to one trailer, go deliver it, bobtail back, hook up to another trailer, deliver it. And then from there, I was going to take an empty to the third pre-plan, which was a live load at 2:30 p.m. in Eugene, which is about, again, 45 minutes, maybe an hour south of Albany, again, depending on traffic. And then that load from Eugene was going to go to Toledo, Oregon, which, funny enough, is where I'm on my way to now, and deliver it there. And then I was going to pick up a new load in Toledo, and that load was going to go to McClellan, California, or Sacramento area, which is the load that I'm doing now. So I guess I don't want to jump ahead. I'm really bad at storytelling, or at least I feel like I am, because I jump around a lot and I forget a lot. So, and I've talked about this before when I've told other stories, but still, I'm going to really try to keep myself on track. And I say this every time. So, I'm going to try to focus. Sorry if I jump around. Anyways. Shoot, now I forget where I was at. Oh boy. Okay, sorry, I remember. So I just told you guys all the plans for the loads. Okay, so yeah, so those are all the pre-plans. And then I reply to the first one, get dispatched on it. And usually when I am coming home from home time or something like that, and I'm sitting in a yard and they want me to take a trailer, if it is that I need to hook up to an empty trailer, I'll wait to go on duty or like do a yard move until I find an empty trailer. So I'll walk around the lot, find my empty trailer, put a lock on it or whatever, and then I'll go back to my truck, do yard move, go hook up to the trailer, then do my pre-trip, all that kind of stuff, That way I'm not starting my 14-hour clock until I know I'm ready, because sometimes there's no empties available. So I don't want to start my 14-hour clock and then, not be able to find an empty and then just waste time, messaging my driver manager back and forth trying to figure out what to do. But with repowers, it's a trailer that's loaded and I am being assigned to it. So obviously it's going to be there, right? So yesterday, I started my clocks as soon as I was ready to go hook up to the trailer. So I went on yard move, went looking for the trailer, drove around our whole lot, didn't find it. So all of our trailers are GPS tracked. So I sent a message to my driver manager and I said, hey, I am supposed to be picking up this trailer for this load. I don't see it. Can you confirm that it is here? My driver manager responded a few minutes later, said, yes, it is showing that it is in Brooks. So I said, okay, I'll check again. So I drove around the whole lot, and this time I also check the trailers that are parked in areas that are for like trailers that need to be serviced, just in case somebody put it in the wrong spot, right? So I checked there, not there. Or sorry, check the whole lot and there. It's not anywhere to be found. So I send another message to my driver manager and I'm like, hey, I still can't find it. I'm gonna do one more look of the entire property. I'm gonna look at every single trailer on the property. I'm gonna walk this time so that way, like, I'm not distracted by like making sure I'm, you know, not about to hit something in my truck, you know. I was like, maybe it just so happened that one of the times I drove by it, like, or both of the times that I drove by it, you know, there was something going on in front of me, so I like glanced away and then looked back as I was already past it, you know. So this time I go out and walk, and my driver manager responded and said, like, okay, sounds good, like, go do your walk. You also have to go get a carb test on your truck before you leave, and if you still can't find the trailer after you go walking around and looking, go in to see a guy named Ryan, and Ryan can help you look for it. So I said, okay, sounds good. So I go walk the whole lot again, walk the entire property. I looked at every single trailer on the property, even the ones parked in areas that are for trailers that like just recently got serviced, trailers that need to be serviced, trailers that are fully out of commission. Like, every single trailer on the property I looked at, aside from the 2 in the shop. Well, actually, not even that's true. I looked at one of the shop bays was open, and I could see that that was a reefer trailer, and all of our trailers are numbered in a way where, like, if it starts with a certain set of numbers, you know it's a dry van, and if it starts with a different set of numbers, you know it's a reefer. So I knew that this one was a dry van, and there was, in fact, a dry van in the other shop bay, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the numbers, right? So I'm gonna make sure my GoPro isn't overheating real quick. Okay, I gave it a little bit of time to cool down, so hopefully that was enough, at least for a little bit. So yeah, there was the one trailer in the shop bay that was closed. That was the only trailer on the whole property that I couldn't see. So I, at that point, was like, well, I gotta go into the shop anyway to talk to them about getting my carb test done. So at this point, it was like 12:30 now. And so this whole ordeal has already taken 2 hours. But anyways, I was like, well, I already got to go in and check in with them about the carb test, so I'll ask them what trailer that is that's in that bay. So in order to get to the shop, you have to walk around the building. Get to the service door, and they're closed because it's lunchtime. So they're all on lunch until 1 o'clock. And I was like, well, that's unfortunate, but whatever. I'll go in, check in with Ryan anyways, and see what is going on, you know, see if he can help me find the trailer, you know, if that is what it is, or, you know, whatever. He's got more authority than me, so he could probably like I figured he could probably walk into the shop on his own. Unlike me, I cannot. So sure enough, I go in and check in with him, and I tell him, you know, looked at every trailer, here's what's going on. There's only one trailer on the whole property that I can't see, and it's that one that's in that shop bay. And he was like, okay, let's go see if that's it. So we walk over there. Sure enough, there it is, the trailer that I'm looking for. I think it was like 49-228 or something. But anyways, there it is. Tires are off of it. It's like hooked up to lines, and they're testing stuff. They're doing like a full inspection of this trailer, or fix of this. There's something's going on, right? They're doing something to this trailer that seems fairly in-depth. So Brian's like, okay, well, I guess you're not taking that trailer, so let's go back and talk to Keith, who was the driver manager that was on duty for like filling in while my driver manager was on lunch. He was like, let's go in and talk to Keith and see what we can do here. So we go back in, and the three of us kind of come together and are trying to figure it out, because I'm like, well, I was supposed to do another repower from here to Albany, but by the time I do that, I'm going to be late to my live load in Eugene. And then I was like, and then I looked at the time as I said that, and I was like, actually, I think even if I were to leave right now, I'm going to be late for my live load in Eugene, and not even do the load, the second pre-plan that was another repower. And they were like, okay, well then let's just have you drive down to the Target Distribution Center in Albany. We'll have you get empty trailer number 6524 or something like that, whatever the trailer number was. And then you'll take that empty down to Eugene to live load. And I guess just keep us updated if you don't think you're gonna make it. So I was like, okay, sounds good. And then as I started to walk out the door, I turned and I was like, wait a minute. I just realized that I still need to get my carb test done though. And if I go down and do that load to Eugene, that load takes me to Toledo, and then from Toledo I go down to Sacramento. So like, how important is the carb test? And Ryan's like, yeah, we gotta have you do that. So then Keith looks through, you know, the loads that they have available, and he's like, okay, well, we can have you go down, live load, take that load to Toledo, then from Toledo have you deadhead back to Brooks, get your carb test done, and then repower something that's going to Toledo, and then, you know, while you deliver that to Toledo, then go from, you know, there where you do your load to Toledo to Sacramento area. So I was like, okay, sounds good. I'll just get rolling. You know, I need all the time I can get, so I'm gonna go start driving. So I start driving, and as I'm on my way down to Albany to get that empty trailer, I'm looking at my clock, and it said, or at my GPS, and even my GPS said I was gonna get there at like 2 p.m. And of course, the GPS is gonna say I'm gonna get there even sooner than I actually am. And I'm like, well, this place that I'm picking up the trailer from is still another 45 minutes or so probably from where I need to be for my live load, and I have to hook up to a trailer and all that. So like, there's no way I'm gonna make, you know, 2:30 p.m. So right as I'm reaching to like grab my headset to call my driver manager, she calls me. So I put on my headset and I answer. I'm like, hey, and she goes, hey, you're not gonna make that. And I went, yeah, I was actually just about to call you. There's no way. And she was like, yeah, they stop loading at 14:30, so like, you can't show up late, so we're just gonna void that one off of you. Instead, what we're gonna have you do is still pick up that empty at the Target Distribution Center. You're gonna take that down to Halsey and then pick up a load there. That load is gonna go to Clatskanie, but you're probably gonna drop it in Brooks, but I'll find out for sure. So I said, okay, sounds good. So I continue on down to the Target Distribution Center, and the Target Distribution Center, they have an off-site lot where they keep all their empties. I've been there before. So I just go straight to the off-site lot and I start looking for the trailer, and there's only 3 made trailers on the property, and none of them are 6524. So I'm like, okay, I'll just drive the 5 more miles down to the distribution center, the actual distribution center, check in with the office and see what they got. So I drive down to the office, and they say, yeah, no, that trailer got loaded up this morning and sent out. Oh, my driver manager's calling me. Give me a second. Okay, the issues from yesterday have apparently bled over into today, but we'll get to that later. It's not a big deal. I'm now almost to Toledo, so I guess I'll just kind of tell the next part, and then we'll take a break while we do our stuff in Toledo. You know what? I'm just gonna wait. I'll catch up with you guys in a little bit. Okay, we have picked up our load. We are back on the road. I did not record at the shipper because they recently updated or upgraded, sorry, their security, and there's no signs that say I can't record there, but I pick up from there a lot, so I don't want to risk it. I didn't want to risk getting in trouble, so just decided to not record, but that's okay. So we're all loaded. Now to continue the story. So I called my driver manager after checking in with the Target Distribution Center and them telling me that the trailer that I was supposed to get was not there, and she had me wait for a minute, and then she was like, okay, you can just go ahead and pick up one of those other empty trailers that you saw at the off-site lot, and you can just take one of those. So took one of those, go down to Halsey, and at this point I'm like, okay, I've now got a load from Halsey. I've never had any issues at Halsey. It's always pretty smooth flowing. So I was like, sick, we're good, you know? We, in fact, were not good. I show up there, and it's my favorite guy. Like, out of all the different shippers I've been to, receivers I've been to, everything, like, I've met a lot of really wonderful people, but this guy is by far my favorite. He's always got such a great attitude, always super nice, like, has conversations with me, just like, I even, like, one of my first ever loads I did was from that facility, and he was the one that was there, and so I was having some trouble sliding my tandems, and he even, like, gave me some advice on how to slide the tandems and stuff. Like, just an awesome guy. Really, really like him. So he and I usually will have a conversation of just like, hey, how have things been since the last time I saw you, or like, how are things going today? So I got there, and he was like, hey, how's your day going so far, you know? And I told him essentially, like, in a very short form, I was like, it's been bad. Literally everything that has gone wrong so far today everything that could go wrong so far seems like it's gone wrong. So I'm hoping that today or here will be the turning of the tide. And he said, well, I hope so too, you know. And he, you know, kind of said like, oh, that's just how days go sometimes. Like, sorry that's how your day today's going, but you know, it's a Monday. That's just how it is sometimes. And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm really trying to make the best of it, but it is what it is. So I gave him my number. He types in the numbers on the computer while I go and slide my tandems. And normally at that point he would come out with a trailer number, and he didn't do that. So I was like, that's not good, you know. And he was still sitting there at his computer when I like had finished sliding my tandems. So I go in, I get out of my truck, open the door to the office, and I go in, and I'm like, well, that's not a good sign that you didn't come out to me. And he goes, yeah, I want to make sure I got these numbers right. Do you want to read them off to me while I type them into the computer? Maybe I just wrote them down wrong or something. And I was like, oh man, that's not what I like to hear, but all right, let's give it a shot. So I read off the numbers to him, and as he's typing them in, as I read them, I watch him hit enter, and sure enough, pops up on the screen, no loads, or you know, nothing to show, or you know, something along those lines. And he turns back to me with just one of those faces of like, yikes, you know. So, and of course I'm sitting there behind him with the same face of like, well, that's unfortunate, you know. So yeah, no load for me. So they were itching for an empty, so I go ahead and, you know, he says like, we really need that empty, can you still drop that one anyway? And I was like, yeah, I can definitely do that. Like, you know, I'll just go get another empty from somewhere else if need be. Like, I'll just grab one of the other empties from the same place. So I go and drop the empty. I call my, you know, attempt to call my driver manager, but I didn't realize that at this point it was like 3:30, and my driver manager goes home usually between 3 and 3:30. So I call, it goes to the main directory, and I'm like, you know, they say, hey, how can I direct your call? And I say, well, I was trying to reach my driver manager, but I take it by the fact that you answered that she has gone home already. And you know, the main directory person, she says, yeah, unfortunately she just went home. So I said, okay, well, I just got to a shipper and they're saying they've got nothing for the numbers that I gave them. So is there another driver manager that I could talk to? So she redirects me to another driver manager, and I have to give that new driver manager the whole rundown on what all has gone along, because she puts in my truck number and she's like, oh my gosh, what is going on? You've got like 6 different pre-plans that have gone on today, and I've got a few showing that they're canceled, but I have you showing that you're supposed to be doing a live load in Eugene right now. And I was like, yeah, no, that was supposed to happen at 2:30, and then they don't take any live loads after 2:30, so I didn't do that. And, you know, had to explain this whole thing. Thankfully, this driver manager was really, really awesome. She let me explain the whole thing. Like, I probably spent 10 minutes getting her all caught up on everything. And so she was like, okay, let me get my supervisor, because this sounds like a pretty wild situation. Let me get my supervisor, figure out what's going on, see what we can do for you. And thankfully, customer service is still in, so if we need to get you a new load, maybe we can get you a new load, you know? So also at this point, I had already been given the pre-plans for a load so okay, I'm sorry, let me kind of collect my thoughts here. So I had that load that was going to Clatskanie, and my driver manager had said maybe I would drop it in Brooks. If not, I would take it to Clatskanie, and then she'd figure something out from there. I had since gotten an update that said, yes, I am in fact taking that all the way to Clatskanie, and then from Clatskanie, I was going to deadhead to Portland, and then in Portland I was going to pick up a new load that goes to Brooks, park in Brooks, and then do my carb test. So at this point now it is almost 4 o'clock, and I was like, hey, you know, there's no way I'm going to make it to do the carb test today, but I think that was what they were originally hoping from me, so we got to figure that out too. So anyways, the driver manager that is, we'll say night crew driver manager, because I don't actually remember her name, and I feel bad because she was really, really helpful, but night crew driver manager, she says, okay, let me, you know, see what's going on, see what we can do. So she calls me back a few minutes, or no, I'm sorry, she put me on hold for like 10-15 minutes, takes me off a hold, and she's like, okay, what we're gonna have you do is get an empty and take an empty back to Brooks. And I was like, okay, well, I just dropped my empty here. Do you want me to, there was a few other empties at the Target distribution center. Do you want me to grab those? And she was like, one of those, and she said, yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. So she said, we're gonna have you grab an empty, take it all the way up to Portland. I'm sorry, I think I just said Brooks. She said, I'm going to take that all the way up to Portland for the load that's supposed to go from Portland just to Brooks. And I was like, okay, that's fine, you know. But I was like, I'm still not going to make it before the shop closes, so I guess I'll just have to do that tomorrow. And she said, yeah, that's probably what we'll have to do. So I start driving to the Target distribution center, and then she calls me again, and she's like, hey, we actually found a load for you that replaces the one that you were going to do. It's the exact same thing. It's going to take you from Halsey up to Clatskanie, and then from there you're going to deadhead down to Portland to get that load that goes to Brooks. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So I turn around, go back to Halsey, pick up that load, which was a little weird. It wasn't like a normal load, but I don't want to get into the whole details of that because it's really just not super important. But basically, picking up that load took a little bit longer than I would have liked. But anyways, now at this point, by the time I'm loaded up and everything, it is now like 6 p.m. And I was like, I am going to have such a late night because I need to do all of this. I have to drive all the way up to Clatskanie and then down to Portland, pick up a new load, and yeah. I knew I was going to have a late night. I expected it to be like 11 or 12 o'clock that I was going to get back to Brooks, and then like 11 p.m. or 12 a.m., like 11 to midnight. And then I was going to go home, spend the night at home, you know, just to like recuperate from the awful day that I had. And yeah, so I'm like, man, this sucks. I'm going to have a super late night, but whatever, 11 or 12, and then like I get home around like 12 or 1, not too bad. So I do my delivery to Clatskanie, and it's a newer guy that is in the security office. And I know he's newer because I've taken loads from there probably a few dozen times at this point. And it's always the same few people, and then all of a sudden this guy just started showing up like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. And every time I was there, he took a really long time, which, again, all of this totally fine. But he took a really long time and would have to like flip through the book to make sure he was doing stuff right and all that. So he's a newer guy. So he takes a while to like do, like to tell me what I'm doing with my trailer, even though I kind of already know what I'm going to be doing with my trailer. But he says like, oh, this is the first like load of this type that we've got, you know, so, or that I've gotten. So I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. And I was like, yeah, no worries. And so he tells me what to do, and I was like, okay, cool, sounds good. And then I need to grab an empty. Am I good to just, you know, like take an empty? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So I go to drop the loaded trailer that I had, and the area that it's supposed to be dropped in, there's only one spot left, and it is like tucked back into the corner, which means I have to do a blindside back. So at this point, it is now, like by the time I got into Clatskanie, it was like 9 p.m. And I will be honest, I usually am going to bed by 9 p.m. Like I usually try to be asleep by 9 p.m. and then I get up at 5 a.m. and start driving. So I still get a full 8 hours, but I go to bed early, get up and drive early. Like I love that schedule. So that's what I try to do. So I was starting to get a little tired, not like sleepy tired, but just like irritable tired, you know? Especially again after everything that happened that day. So I was like, oh man, I got a blindside back now. And although I will say it did go really well, it was still frustrating to have to do. And I had to get out of the truck and, you know, get out and look a bunch. I think I got out of the truck to look to make sure I wasn't going to hit anything, like probably 7 or 8 times. That said, again, it did still go pretty well. I am very actually happy with how that blindside back went, because I mean, it was, I do kind of wish I would have recorded it, but I don't know, it was too dark. I probably wouldn't have been able to anyway. But either way, it was a very, very tight spot to get into. I mean, even like driver's side back, that would have been difficult. And I blindside backed it and basically got it with like 1 pull-up, maybe 2. So very proud of myself for that, but it was still frustrating nonetheless. So then I go over to the lot with all the empty trailers, and this lot has just been torn up recently. Like, just with all the weather that has been going on, like the lot is just like all potholes now, and like big ones. I mean, they're like, potholes probably isn't even the right word. They're like craters at this point. Like, in fact, the last time I was at Clatskanie, somebody bobtailing bottomed out and got stuck like right in the center of the like lane of travel that you're supposed to have. So somewhere that you definitely should not be getting stuck, this guy got stuck just like driving normally. So that did not give me a bunch of confidence. So I pull into this lot and I'm like, I'm just going to take the first empty trailer I can see so that I don't have to pull super far into this lot. Well, while trying to back up to that trailer, I almost got stuck on a huge crater thing. So I thankfully, like, I realized it was starting to kind of hop and jump and not do good things, and I kind of wiggled the wheel back and forth to get it to like kind of shimmy, and I turned off the traction control real fast and then floored it all at the same time. And that managed to get me from, like, keep me from getting stuck, thankfully. And I want to note, I was not near anything. Like, I wouldn't have floored it if I was close to, like, something, you know, because I would have risked hitting it. I wasn't near anything. So that's why I felt like this was the best option. So, in the process, though, of making sure I didn't get stuck and getting off of that huge bump, I shook the whole truck. Everything from all of my shelves came crashing down. I got hit in the head by stuff on my, like, up on the shelves, like stuff that, like, these shelves are like, it's not like a flat shelf, like these things are tucked away. This should not happen, but that's how violent like the shaking was from how big this crater was. So anyways, hook up to the empty trailer and then slide the tandems and everything, go to the exit, and as I'm driving to the exit, like I'm kind of driving by the shack, and I just like kind of wave like, hey, am I all good? You know, kind of like, you know, like one of these kind of deals of like, hey, am I good? And he waves and he's like, no, and I'm like, what? So he opens up the slider and he's like, hey, sorry, I forgot to tell you, you need to pick up a specific empty. It's this one, and hands me a post-it note with a trailer number. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be freaking kidding me, you know? But again, this guy's new. I understand mistakes happen. Like, he didn't know. So although in my head I was furious, I was like, okay, no worries, you know? Like, I think he could tell that I was pretty, like, defeated by it, more so than upset. So he was like, I'm so sorry, you know, like, I feel awful. Like, I'm really sorry that you got to do this. And I was like, no, it's fine, you know, like, I understand mistakes happen and everything. Like, it's no worries. And then I was like, can I just back up, or do I have to go turn around? Because backing up would be super easy. Going up and turning around, I basically have to leave the property to go turn around. And he said, no, unfortunately, you got to go turn around. So it takes me like 5-10 minutes to go turn around, and then, you know, another 15-20 minutes, however long, to slide the tandems back on the trailer I already had, drop that trailer, hook up to the new one, slide the tandems, all this stuff. I don't think I ended up getting out of Clatskanie until like, gosh, like 10:30 maybe, something like that. I mean, it was pretty late. And yeah, again, at this point I was just exhausted. Thankfully, that was the end of my woes of like things going wrong, was him, you know, not telling me that I needed to take a specific empty. So thankfully that was the end of that. I then did the next load, you know, or drove empty down to get the next load, took that one to Brooks, and then parked for the night. And I don't think I parked until 12:45 or so. which means I didn't get home until like 1:30, so I didn't get to bed until like 2 a.m. So it just was not ideal, and I thankfully, you know, again, still get to, the silver lining is that I did still get to spend the night at home, got to see my wife again, the dogs and everything, got to spend the night in my nice comfy bed, so I can't, again, be too upset, but it does not mean that the day was not super, super frustrating. And again, this is all just part of trucking. These things happen. Like I have definitely had days that were worse than this already, but it still was just not, you know, like I come back from home time, rejuvenated, ready to go, and then I just get punched in the face, it felt like. So just not super ideal, but that is my story time for you guys. Oh, I guess actually, sorry, to continue the story time, because I got that call from my driver manager. This is the last thing pertaining to the story. So my driver manager called today because I did my carb test this morning, and then after I finished the carb test, I got a message from her that said, okay, you're done with your carb test, go ahead and head for Toledo. I sent back a message that said, hey, do you want me to bobtail or deadhead? And she had gone to lunch right after she sent that previous message. So when I said, do you want me to bobtail or deadhead, somebody else responded and said, take an empty dry van. So I hook up to an empty dry van. I get to the point where I was like maybe 20 miles away when I got that call, when I was talking to you guys. And it's Margaret, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I'm driving to Toledo. And she goes, are you empty? And I said, yeah. And she goes, oh no. And I go, what? And she's like, you were supposed to be live loading in Eugene. And I was like, no, that was yesterday. I was supposed to live load yesterday, but then we canceled that because I wasn't gonna make it. And she goes, oh, okay, hang on. Sorry, I might have misunderstood then. I might have misunderstood what customer service was saying. Okay, hang on. And so she looks at it and she goes, okay, no, you're all good. You're right. That load was canceled. I think she was like, it got canceled, and then for some reason Night Crew put it back on you. But yeah, that was canceled. That's a no-go. You're good. Just keep going to Toledo, and then you're all set. So she just misunderstood what customer service was saying, and she thought that like they had told me something, and so it was just like a little bit of miscommunication. But yeah, she ended up just telling me like, hey, you're good. So now we are finally on that load that is going to McClellan, and I think that's all I'm gonna have for today. Okay, this video has already gone on way longer than I realized. When I recorded this, I did not realize how long I talked for. So I'm sorry that this is yet another video where all I did was talk for 30 minutes. But I hope you guys still enjoyed nonetheless. Next video, we are doing a 3-stop delivery, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. I have already recorded it and started editing it at the time that I'm recording this, and I think it's a great video. Lots of backing maneuvers and stuff, and they were all pretty easy, but still, you guys will see when that video comes out, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. In the meanwhile though, if you did enjoy this video, I hope you would consider subscribing. A lot of my views are still coming from people that aren't subscribed, so if that's you, please do consider subscribing. It is free and it helps the channel a lot. Also, like the video and comment anything that you can think of, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.